Thank you to the Yogananda Fest and the team who's made this presentation possible. Thank you, Hana Santoshi, for translating, and especially thank you to all the flowers worldwide that have enriched our lives beyond what we can imagine. This talk will be on a unique element of the flower essences, spirit and nature essences, and in fact, focusing on Yogananda's psycho-spiritual list of the qualities of different foods as they correspond to the blossom. So I will be talking about the flowers and about the food source as a reference, because many people know a banana, but they may not know the blossom. And so these are very interesting times, not just locally or in a particular country, but in the whole world. And it's a perfect time for this weekend to happen, a perfect time for people to know how much they can work on themselves and turn the obstacles into opportunities. It's a delightful subject that we have, and I've chosen to speak more about the art and even the poetry of the blossoms. There's a term you may have heard from homeopathy. It's called the Doctrine of Signatures. What this means is that a plant or tree or stalk, as in the case of banana, will have certain features that symbolize the deeper meaning or deeper expression of that plant or tree. And so we'll be focusing on that. I would like to start, as I often do in a seminar, by offering to actually spray all of you with the essence of the pear blossoms. And you think, well, that's strange, you're in Northern California. However, we see on Zoom, we've already removed the illusion and the obstacle of time and space. You see, I have some plant friends behind me. I'll spray them as well and see if you can energetically pick up this vibration of the pear essence, of the pear blossoms, which is for peacefulness. Of our 20, based on these psycho-spiritual qualities interpreted by Yogananda, pear is, they're all important, but you could say doubly, triply, 100 times more important, because even Swami Kriyananda said all of humanity has only one problem. Isn't that wonderful to simplify? That problem is resistance. We resist what life brings to us, especially in an emergency situation. We push things away. We exert a tremendous amount of energy to resist, to not accept what's happening, what the flow is. How do you summarize that? The pear blossoms have inner peace. Okay, so I will spray these plants, I will spray myself, and see if you can transcend time and space and have an experience of this waterfall of peace, okay? If you like, you can close your eyes. You can sit up very straight as a yogi. Have your spine straight. That helps your own energy flow through your chakras. Have your feet firmly on the floor, uncross your legs, even have your hands with palms upward on the juncture between the knee and the thigh, about halfway, your chin parallel to the ground. Okay, this puts your shoulders back, it opens the heart. Now we're ready. Okay, first I will spray the plants, and they will be the conduit to give you this message of the pear blossom, the pear essence, and to resonate with the inner peace that you already have inside of you. See if you feel, one more time, that energy. Feel that you're bathed and a waterfall of peacefulness. Everything is okay. The essences and the flowers sometimes have nicknames. This is the It's Okay flower essence. It dissolves resistance and helps you overcome your obstacles. Take a couple deep breaths, not only with your lungs, not only with your heart, but with your entire spine. Feel this flow of peacefulness. Whatever comes to you is okay. We can't control the outer circumstances, but we can work inwardly, very deeply, very powerfully. Open your eyes when you're ready. And so now we begin. I want to start on a very universal level and talk about flows of energy, because this is what the flowers channel to us. And this is what the food on our table, we're talking fresh fruits and vegetables and some nuts, this is what they offer to us. We're talking about then the Gunas. These are flows of energy. And I'm quoting, as you may recognize from Indian scripture, there are basically 3 gunas. You've probably heard of these: tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic, tamo, raja, and sattva. So we'll start with the lowest form, which is tamaguna. And all of us experience these flows of energy. There are even combinations. So tamaguna is a deadening, a darkening, a lower form of energy, kind of sluggish, maybe how you feel when you have to get up in the morning and it's so warm and cozy. So that's tamasic energy that we can also find in some foods, believe it or not. Mushrooms have that lower kind of energy, even though they're tremendously filled with vitamins and minerals. Then we come to Rajaguna, Rajas, and that is activating, very energetic, but not always centered or calm and peaceful, so a little bit scattered. And that can happen to us a lot with technology taking off and leaving us in the dust, you might say, if that idiom will translate well. Then we come to Sattva Guna, and here's where we come to the flowers and the corresponding foods. This is what I call the flower food connection, because these 20 flower essences are based on the food source according to Yogananda's list. So the sattva energy is elevating, pure, uplifting. All flowers fall into this category and the corresponding food source. So when we, for example, eat an apple, we've heard the expression, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. That might be a universal little saying. We are eating a psycho-spiritual quality of peaceful clarity. So what I would like to do, time allowing, and I think it might, is to go through all 20 of these for you and to show you an affirmation card so you'll be able to see both the blossom in its magnificence and the corresponding food source. Here we have almond for moral vigor. What does that mean? It means integrity. It means also self-control, moderation. This is, you could say, a very yogic flower with its large white petals that grows in a tremendously unique form of pollinating twice a year with the male-female flowers. And I'd like to share something very sweet that has happened in my family. Last month, 2 of my very dear nieces each had a baby. They each had a little girl. And here we see the miracle of birth. There are two people, the parents, and then there's a third human being. What we see with the flowers that produce fruits is no less of a miracle. Isn't that so? That we have the blossoms that become a food source that will nurture us, that will feed us, that will give us not only the vitamins and minerals we need to sustain our body, but that will give us the psychological and spiritual qualities to build ourselves in these sattvic ways. I mentioned apple essence already, and here it is. This is a magnificent, not only fruit, but the blossom. You can see, usually, of course, they grow in clusters. Usually they are white, some of them are pure white, but with that pinkish glow. And I always think of a runner who's just had a great cardio session. So there's that blush of health that we experience with peaceful clarity. Maybe we need to make certain decisions. Maybe there's a big change in our lives of job or housing or family. And this flower and accordingly flower essence can help us to resonate with that very blossom. Don't you see just the glow of health right there? We come to the avocado blossom, very, very tiny. At the end, the terminal protrusion of the tiny blossoms for good memory. What does good memory mean? It means many things. It can mean, oh my goodness, I forgot my shopping list. Can I remember what I need to buy at the grocery store? But on a much deeper level, we think of the Sanskrit word smriti, which means remembrance of who we really are. This is a good question. And I ask you, who are you? We have all kinds of self-definitions. I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm an American, Californian, German. But who are we really? That's what avocado essence is about. Now imagine this. Paramahansa Yogananda came to America 101 years ago. He had his long robes of the yogi, of the renunciate. He had his long hair symbolizing the antenna, in a sense, to pick up the more subtle vibrations. That was the tradition. But he also had the ability to understand all levels of realities, all thought forms of all people. And he assessed long before studies proved this true that the oil of the avocado fruit, because it is botanically considered a fruit with the seed or pit or stone inside, he intuited that avocado oil is very healing for the brain. And so we see, back to the concept of the Doctrine of Signatures, that there is that thread of commonality from the plant or tree to the blossom, to the flower essence, of course, made from the blossoms, to the food source. So I encourage you very highly to explore these foods, to research just in your own fun experience this flower-food connection, and to go for the freshest and possibly bio or organic version of the fruit or vegetable, and see how you feel. Watch the resonance with your own energy when you take the food source, the flower essence, made directly from the blossoms. We go next to banana essence. I had mentioned that already. Extremely powerful. because banana is for humility rooted in calmness. And what does that mean? You might say the opposite of humility is ego. We do need the ego. Is it a friend or foe? It can be both. However, in the flower form, we see, and I'm going to tell you a little story. This is actually upside down because this is how that blossom actually looks. And under each of these leaves grows 12 to 16 ripe bananas. And the weight of the growing bananas causes that blossom to turn downward, not in a negative way, but almost in a prayerful way, you might say, almost in a way that sets the ego aside. And here we have an unusual expression of the psycho-spiritual quality of humility because this flower chose to be born and ripen on a stalk, not a plant or a tree, almost symbolically representing, I bow to you. I won't take the form of a plant or tree, but something a little less conspicuous, less drawing attention to itself. So here is a blossom that speaks to us about self-forgetfulness and self-honesty. Those are secondary good explanations of what humility is all about. We come to blackberry essence with a magnificent blossom, either white or sometimes with a tiny bit of a very rich lavender color and thorns. In a sense, to protect itself because its quality is purity of thought. You could also say purity of heart. It's a wonderful cleanser. And even in its form of a juice, blackberry juice, or in fact, any berry except raspberry and strawberry that we'll talk about, any berry has that quality of purity of thought. There is a very strong moral nature here, the psycho-spiritual quality explained by Paramahansa Yogananda. There is a sense of respect for the earth, the environment, of keeping cleanliness in your environment because of how that affects the mind and therefore the thoughts. It's a magnificent flower. And I was starting to say, even the juice will be a blood purifier for the body. Next, we go to cherry. There's a magnificent blossom and a beautiful fruit. The fruit, as you know, as are the trees, are either sweet or sour. And here's what's interesting. The sour varieties tend to be very shallow-rooted trees. So we could say poetically that the negativity signifying the lack of the cheerfulness of the cherry, the kind of grumpiness, the turning away from the light, you might say, it's very shallow-rooted in our nature. It's not really who we are. This is such a delightful flower. And I encourage you in the springtime mostly, if you have the opportunity to go into an orchard and completely surround yourself with a particular kind of blossom. It's so easy and so wonderful to feel that cheerfulness. I have a friend, a German friend, who actually happens to be speaking this weekend as well, Almond, who told me many years ago when he was a young boy, he used to climb up the cherry trees and sit there and just eat and eat the cherries until his fingers turned this beautiful shade of red. Even the cherry fruit itself has an uplifting, lighthearted quality. It's not just red, it can be a little bit of a pinkish red. So even color, again, referring back to the Doctrine of Signatures, the color of the fruit or food source can affect us in a sattvic way. We then come to not the coconut blossom, but the coconut bud. And this is a fruit, or in fact a nut, we would say, for uplifted spiritual awareness. Interestingly enough, we have in the coconut tree the element of elevation, because coconuts can grow up to 80 feet off the ground. I'm not sure what that is in meters, but a very interesting concept that we are elevated even above the earth. This is for finding solutions to problems, for living in not just the conscious mind, or in fact not the conscious mind, but in the superconscious mind. It doesn't matter how stuck you feel in a situation. Coconut is wonderful for helping you to find a way out. The coconut milk, the coconut meat, or fruit or nut itself is a very complete food. The milk itself can be completely nourishing to us. As I was mentioning, the flower essences can get their little nicknames. And this one is sometimes called going to the dentist essence. And this is in my first book, The Essential Flower Essence Handbook. I'm sorry to say the book was in German many years ago, and we're working on getting it back in German for you. So if anyone knows a publisher, please let me know and see what we can do to get you more information. But anyway, because just yesterday, a friend of mine said he had to go to the dentist, I thought, oh, coconut, because there is a situation you cannot get out of it. You cannot walk away. If you do, you have to pay for the appointment anyway, don't you? And probably the problem will not fix itself. Teeth usually don't do that. Isn't that the case? And so this flower essence helps you to face a challenge and go directly through it. That's the only way. You can't go under it, above it. You can't walk out the door and close it behind you, because it is, again, that situation. You need to face it. You need to find a solution. You need to go to as sattvic an energy as you can. And that's what this tiny bud of the coconut tree can help us to do and to remember. We then come to a vegetable. And yet the corn stalk as well will create the male tassel and the female silk for the pollination, and this flower essence and this, tassel silk is about mental vitality, new beginnings. When you need a burst of that kind of energy that just says yes to life. We have an expression in Yogananda's teachings. This is thanks to Swami Kriyananda. We talk about the unwillingness monster. Here's the solution, that mental vitality. So this flower and flower essence have the nickname of the house cleaning essence, because here's a chore that we may want to put off. Maybe it's not everyone's favorite thing to do, but when you recognize that this plant will affirm in you that you do have the energy, you have more energy than you need, more energy than you could ever imagine. Now imagine Yogananda coming to this country of America, as we said 101 years ago, and saying to people, in the tip of your smallest finger, you have enough energy to light the city of Chicago. And of course, back in those days, Chicago was a much smaller city, even though it was a large city. But think about this, to affirm the bigness, the expansive nature, our sattvic self of who we really are. The Latin term for this vegetable is Z maize. That's all about life force, life. It's a wonderful food for the Native American Indians. It has a rich tradition with the Mayan culture. And yet, you too can benefit from just knowing about this plant and its magnificence for us. We come to the date essence for tender sweetness. And again, just a bud, but we see the flowering tassels, you might say, for the pollination of the date plant. That how do we ourselves express this quality that these blossoms, you can call them that, express so easily? How do we express not just sweetness, but with a tenderness? By seeing the unity between all living things, not just human to human, but humans to animals, humans to flowers, of course, and to plants, and to honoring that. There's another very important part of this. Again, we're going to give it the benefit of the doubt and call it blossoms. And that is when we are without judgment, we become sweet. We become date-like. And in the book, The Essential Flower Essence Handbook, I talk about chocolate. How can you not talk about chocolate when you talk about sweetness? There was a saint who said that our craving for sweetness through outer sources is because we need to live it and experience it in ourselves. This psycho-spiritual quality is a reminder to us that we too have that sweetness. We can live in that sweetness of acceptance of other people. Then we have the fig tree with its huge palmately formed leaves, very palm-like, and the tiny, tiny buds that grow at the end of the branches. And fig is for flexibility and self-acceptance. And if you think about it, those two qualities fit together so beautifully. It's for being too hard on ourselves, which is probably most of the human race. It's so easy to do that. And even in our vague or very clear memories of the astral world, we bring into this world, the physical plane, that memory of a certain perfection. But it's okay to have that standard, but we also want to accept who we are, where we are. If you have the opportunity, go sit under a fig tree and see if you can feel that energy, even in the trunk of the tree. Not only the leaves and these tiny buds and the fruit source that may be on your table as we speak. See if you can resonate with that quality. Most people find something they don't like about their bodies. Isn't that true? And it's also true that people see themselves as about 20% less attractive than other people do. We look at our flaws. We look at the models on the fashion magazines, and then we look in the mirror. What do we see? This fruit, and more concentrated in the blossoms and in the flower essence, which is how we distill the blossoms, that is the highest concentration of energy. Here's some very good news. The flower of the tree or plant or stalk contains 90% of that tree or plant's life force. 90%. The rest is in the bark, the stems, the leaves, etc. But it is the blossom that contains that life force. We then come to the tiny grape bud or cluster of flowers that you see here. And I had mentioned pear is special. They're each one special, as each human being is special. Every blossom is special. This tiny, tiny cluster of flowers is all about divine love and devotion. Devotion meaning a committed, a devoted form of love. This world is so lacking in love, and yet it's our job, our commitment, and our responsibility to be a channel for that flow of energy, even as the tendrils of the grapevine will wrap themselves around whatever they're growing on. Maybe it's a fence, maybe it is other grapevines. They embrace. So there too is the doctrine of signatures symbolism to love, to give love freely. And here's an encouragement for you. Don't wait for love to come to you, because you already have it. And if you walk around saying, oh, I don't have love in my life, where's the partner for me? Where's the perfect job, the perfect friendship? It's right here. It's like the musk deer and the musk ox. You may have heard this story, who will jump off a cliff in search of the source of that tremendous scent that lies within his own physical body. So we're looking for something that we already have. Don't wait for it. Live it right now and honor the grapes on your table as a source, but again, through the blossoms, infinitely more potent in those few drops of the flower essence. You see, again, that progression of the psycho-spiritual qualities. We then come to another fascinating, you could see I adore these flower essences and all the foods. This is lettuce. Now this is a deceptive photo, because doesn't this look like a field of these beautiful blossoms? Guess what? This is the very top of one plant, one bolted lettuce plant, where instead of the pattern of the blossom becoming the fruit, here the vegetable has already happened, has already made its way onto your table. And then it bolts, it goes to seed. Then it creates the seeds and these magnificent, vibrant blossoms for the quality of calmness. I always go like this when I talk about lettuce essence. I know that looks bizarre, but this is a very fifth chakra flower essence. And just to show you their manifestation in the form of the flower essences, you can see the rainbow colors of the chakra blends, each with 3 flower essences geared toward awakening and strengthening the energy of the particular chakras. And here again, talking about lettuce essence, very important essence, because it's even in the food form, it gives you a certain biochemical calmness. Lettuce juice can be used to promote sleep. So when you think of the fifth chakra, you think of all the psycho-spiritual qualities of these blossoms, which are expansion, clear communication. We have the expression to speak your truth. It is the higher creative center. The lower, not lower energetically, but lower in its placement. It's the opposite of the second chakra, which is the creativity of perhaps children. So a very powerful blossom that says, be calm and be at the same time very energized. Next we have
Was machst du?
the orange blossom, as you see here, and the magnificent fruit that we all know so well. This is a very sacred fruit in India, where for any kind of spiritual ceremony where fruit is offered, very often it is the orange. And oh, I so encourage you to find an orange orchard and be completely overwhelmed with this very saintly scent of the orange blossoms that creates this fruit for enthusiasm, for hope. It has a very deep message for us, this blossom, and that is, no matter how difficult or how long-standing our problems are, we can overcome. We have the expression, the light at the end of the tunnel. That is the orange blossom. And as this fruit grows in its clusters, because you can see the blossom is not single, it's sort of got its family of other blossoms right there with it. The oranges grow very heavy and they pull the branches down. The branches do not break. The branches are resilient. Again, that doctrine of signatures, that beautiful poetry that this fruit and this blossom carry the message that we can overcome. We are resilient. It doesn't matter how deep or even how long ago difficulties came to us. We can still be energized and refreshed by this food source and by this delicious blossom. Next, we have peach essence, no doubt a fruit and a food source that everyone loves, that itself is very nourishing and nurturing. And this flower has the psycho-spiritual quality of unselfishness. I have to share with you that for many years, it was a not very well understood flower essence. And that has been changing even recently to understand, okay, what is unselfishness? It's often not a very well-known or popular quality because people often tend to think of themselves, how they can improve their own lives. Yet this blossom, even in its color of pink, the divinity, because the blossoms are pink, and so delicate, like the fruit itself, that they say, you know, I'm happiest when I think of others first. It doesn't mean you're left out. It means quite the opposite. They've done studies on prayer and learned that the person doing the praying receives more benefits even than the person being prayed for. Why is that? Because you are closest to the source of the prayers. So this blossom has a very prayerful energy, a very, you could say, archetypal mother, or in Indian scriptures, the concept of the divine mother, as opposed to the heavenly Father, who can serve and serve and serve and be energized by it instead of depleted. We did already talk about the Pear Essence, and we experienced it. You know, I write blogs for our two websites. One is also the author website, liladeviauthor.com. And this is a very white blossom. White is not even considered a color, though it contains all colors, and in a sense, you could say no colors. It is considered a shade, just a shade, and that shade, as we said, is peacefulness. I'll move along so we can honor our time constraints. Pineapple essence. Again, where is the blossom? It's more the stalky part and at the very top of the pineapple. And this fruit can take up to 2 years to fully mature unless it's treated, as often happens in the pineapple orchards and plants. But it's all about self-assurance. It's all about reinforcing your magnetism, your charisma, your ability to draw abundance. So think of that as you bite into that tangy taste of a food source. It's tangy, it's very rich. You always know in a fruit salad when there's pineapple, isn't that true? It stands out. It's very, very eye-catching, but not in an egoic sense at all. Raspberry, a beautiful blossom, as you see that white blossom that grows also on a stem with thorns. And here is a fruit and a blossom that gives the psycho-spiritual message of kindness and compassion. Where do those qualities come from? The ability to forgive. When we hold grudges, again, remembering that we're closest to the source, we are the ones most hurt. So a very profound, heart-oriented blossom. Spinach. And that is actually proportionately the size of this little yellow blossom that also, like the lettuce blossom, will bolt. Spinach is a food source, a vegetable for simplicity, excuse me, and for being without guile. So being without any falseness or pretense, very childlike, very sweet, very dear for people. And you can see how it grows nurtured, cradled within the large leaves of what we call the goosefoot family in the Latin explanation of this. It's that size. That's how big the blossom is. And that vibrant color of being a very nurtured, functional child, and yet with a profound depth to it. Strawberry essence. And unfortunately, we're about out of time, but strawberry for dignity. And you can see that blossom. I had the incredible opportunity to make this flower essence while in Italy. And I've never seen such large strawberry blossoms because it's also about beauty. And you could say Italy is the country that represents that quality. Or grounding because it grows on the ground as well. Lastly, tomato essence and tomato blossom. You can see that great strength in the blossom of the mental strength, courage, endurance, and the fruit, which the tomato is considered because the seeds grow within it. So we're coming to the close of our time together, and I just want to leave you with that thought to explore for yourself, if you can, these blossoms, and certainly if you can, these fresh fruits and vegetables that represent that sattvic energy that is a part of who you are, to reinforce them in that way. And we have a byline, which is a thought I want to leave you with. May you be inspired by these blossoms, by the wisdom of nature to nurture us. And my wish for all of you is perfect well-being.